Hey everyone, welcome to another AI conversation. I'm happy to be joined today by someone I met during an event, Miss Olha Mukha, and she's part of the PEN organization. I was at the PEN Congress, I don't know, what was it, about a month ago, which was attended by, I guess, the writing, industry or the writing profession. We had some Palanca awardees there, etc. And obviously, I'm not a writer, but my role there was more of a technologist. But before we get to that, hi Olha, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for invitation.
Yeah. So maybe for the benefit of the one or two people who don't know you, guys, because I think you're quite famous. I've seen your LinkedIn. uh, maybe tell us about yourself, a little bit about yourself and the PEN Congress.
I'm with PAN, and that was the reason why I've been in Philippines, not for the first time, by the way, and really in love with your country, which is such a country of contrasts, I should say. And I remember that the very first time when I visited Manila, I was quite impressed with the number of technology development and developers. And then when I dig deeper, I realized that a huge amount of people serving for SEO and also developers all around the world belong to the Philippines, by the way. Even if you're looking for suppliers and you're getting yourself, I don't know, the company based in the UK, in the US, a lot of times you're ending up working with Ukrainians or Filipino guys. This is the reality of technology and software nowadays. And I think that that was a great addition for the Congress to add this AI technology topic. But on my background, I am a culture analyst and comm strategist. I work in a PAN International headquarters here in London, and now I'm switching more to strategic communication, working for IN2 here in London as well. Working mostly on a strategic communication. But my background is an academic, and I work primarily, my postdoc, I'm still finishing, is on aesthetic perception, just mean creating participant journey based on the, let's say, feeding in information. And I trained it a lot in very different fields, in business, in communications, also in arts, in museums, creating exhibitions, but also analyzing the information delivery as well in terms of propaganda, debunking propaganda, analyzing, creating narratives. So this is my main point of interest to AI, let's say that way. In that conversation where we met, I was really interested because it's always very difficult to match the tech guys and writers. There's a totally two different universes. I am challenged at times. Back in 2020, then we all faced the global pandemic situation and we had to cancel our in-person congresses and switch to the fully digital products. I think that writers were one of those communities who suffered the most. And it took them a while to get familiar with the new reality and new environment. And I used to be this kind of, transit messenger in between of technicalities and the writer's universe. So I found that conversation really insightful, very interesting in terms of highlighting the most painful and sometimes maybe not too obvious aspects of AI usage in the writing world.
As we're talking now, we're entering the 1 year anniversary of ChatGPT. So I'm wondering, when did you first interact with ChatGPT? Presumably early this year or last year. And what was your reaction when you first saw the tool?
Well, I was one of the first in Ukraine was signed up. I'm being very pragmatic about all these new developments. So I really like to try different new things, and obviously a lot of them are just trying. As we know, about 80% of different startups and projects are just disappearing, even if they were successful the very first months. But I really think that, and I still see the huge potential in ChatGPT, even if for our colleagues, it was, especially in academic world, it was a bit scary. And I think that people keep undervaluing it still, because a lot of my academic colleagues, they just jump into the free version and think, yeah, here is GPT 3.5 model. We're going to try it, ask him quite basic questions, seeing that there are no sources. It lies a lot, and then just jump into the conclusion that it's not really powerful tool. While paying, it's different, I believe, in different countries, but around $20 a month, I believe, right? When I signed up, that was $70 a year. Was the very beginning. Now it's around $20 for a month, and access to GPT-4 and DALL-E browsing, advanced data, work with links when it just deliver you sources. It shows you completely different horizon of usage. So I think that here is quite important thing when you want to bring together your opinion and some experience in ChatGPT. Don't build it on access to the free version. That's definitely too limited. And I tried to use that initially for very different things. And let's say if you need to build any basic structure, it works. If you need to rework some big amount of information in very technical terms, like, for example, content analysis, right? Instead of buying quite expensive professional programs, if you need one or two operations, let's say, right, to, I don't know, word count, specific of usage of word, just a very basic narrative analysis or content analysis, it works quite good. If you need to rewrite things, especially if those are legal documents, work perfectly. And so this is a tool which works for now in the world of algorithms. If you have very clear framework and if you providing it quite clear task, it's doing it. And people keep saying, oh, but you need to check on it. Well, I need to check on each of my assistants as well. It doesn't change the thing, but it does change the time of task delivery. So mostly for me, it's very sufficient tool in terms of quite basic, but still time-consuming tasks, I would say. In terms of creativity, no, it can't replace. It can, even if you are asking about just, I don't know, rewrite something, it just so dry in terms of appearance, in terms of performance, and in terms of attractive texts. If you need to, let's say, rewrite legal document in a simple term, that's totally doable for ChatGPT. If you want to rewrite, I don't know, some nice story in a more attractive way, just forget about it. Not gonna work, not yet.
Do you personally use ChatGPT in work, or where do you see the tool occupying part of your day or your workflow? Is that something that you would normally use in various tasks?
Absolutely, I do use it on a daily basis, and I think that the very beginning, I was quite impressed at how much time it can really save me during the day. And especially not to writing, but mostly I do use it for analysis, especially when I need to apply, I don't know, some analysis of different factors, cross factors, because manually it takes a lot of time. Obviously, you anyways should reread and review, but it gives you a great draft, let's say. And let's say that a huge amount of projects time spending is wasted due to poor project performance based on not enough data or not proper analyzing data. So I think that, for example, partly I'm project manager and program manager. So then I'm switching my processes from process-based adherence to data-driven model mostly, right? So just keep feeding it with more and more details and trying to gain to the more focused results. So I think that there are basically three factors I would name in terms of daily usage and value of AI technology for the person like me who is juggling a couple of hats and mostly working with a lot of information. The first is productivity, for sure. It's create a scope, documents up for, let's say, times faster, right? And you can also double check yourself through performing error review, right? This is also quite valuable function. Then outcome analysis. Obviously, those are projections, but still they give you the different perspectives than you do. It doesn't replace your work with a team, but it adds a lot of insights as well, or factors you can oversee easily. So sometimes it just can help with each of us taking a lot of decisions on a daily basis. I'm this kind of person who used to facing any problem, including personal, just to go to SWOT analysis. So decision which project or which priority to take right now or to cancel. So I think that this outcome analysis really helps a lot. And decision making, just take action sooner. In communication, it worth a lot. Communication, sometimes, especially if it's crisis communication, the first few hours worth the whole universe. And take action with the higher probability of success. I think this is probably one of the most valuable features for business as well.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that, because you mentioned your role is in strategic comms. I guess you mentioned crisis comms. What kind of an impact do you see, generative AI, ChatGPT making in strategic comms or in crisis comms from where you sit now?
Well, there are a lot of, and especially if we are talking about communication in crisis time or in times of war, I think that this is a quite efficient tool. First of all, obviously, let's say we start from not AI, but just if we are talking about technologies, I think that that's been crucial to Ukrainian communications, mainly due to our Starlink satellites. Even my tiny museum in Western Ukraine, which is Museum Territory of Terror I'm cooperating with, they have their own Starlink just in case, right? The winter is coming, and as we could see in the ongoing war, that communication and trust, they became the main currency of the war. I remember I'm quite regularly in Ukraine, and probably the only really scary moment happened to me when I lost connection. I remember sitting in the quite empty office in Kyiv. It was quite cold. It was last winter. There were a series of massive blackouts, but people can get used to all of those things, starting from, generators and firewood, whatever works. Everyone has everything. But you are kind of feeling yourself being in control and in charge of the situation, because you have those billion of Telegram channels and you are signed off and you understand which are more trustworthy, less trustworthy, more opinion makers, more hard facts, right? And then you still have, and even kids in Ukraine can calculate like which kind of, is it ballistic? Or how much time do we have to go to the bomb shelter, or should we or not? And that sounds a bit crazy and surrealistic, but this is a reality, right? So you're just checking the app and like, okay, I have, let's say, 15 minutes to close my urgent tasks, download the documents, and just walk to the bomb shelter and proceed with my work. Where I know plenty of There was a funny pattern of most of my friends, like when it starts rocket alarms, okay, you have 15 minutes to wash your hair because there are no possibility that later on you will have the option. And then you just go and take your decision. And that was the only moment when that connection fell down. And I spent probably the longest 40 minutes in my whole life when there were no connection, internet connection, no updates. And I've been alone in an empty cold office. And my first intention was I just go somewhere, just to the street where any people are. I just need to be together with the other people. And I think that communication, and especially all those channels, social media, they created this feeling of presence, even if others are not here physically. And it gives you this feeling, I don't want to say illusion, because it's when you have knowledge, you have some kind of control. And when it's taken off, that's quite scary. That was probably one of the scariest moments I had in terms of how I felt in the whole situation. And if we are talking about the practicalities, for example, Telegram channels. Telegram channel has this app, like additional app, TG Stat. It's paid, obviously, but this is a great tool because you can analyze, let's say, not only those simple data as how much people see in the post, outreach and everything, but also reactions. And if previously those were only 3 reactions, like positive, negative, neutral, now you have 6. You have the whole scope. You have joy, you have fear. And for comms, there's nothing more valuable than having such a feedback. So you literally can monitor the changes of people reaction to some kind of news or narrative, right? And obviously, as analysts and strategists, you read in all those things, but then you have limited capacity as a human being. I can't read, let's say, 600 channels a day, but I can get an access to some data-driven I don't know, statistics on those 600 channels by clicking a few buttons. And this is a huge input to our thinking, to our knowledge, and basically to our work. Very simple.
Yeah, remember in the Penn Congress, in my panel, I was with at least 2 or maybe 3 professors, and they were talking about really banning the tool, at least in school. How do you react to that? I mean, obviously, for me, I found that horrifying. It's like banning the internet or something, right? Like, but I can understand why they might want to do that. For you, how do you feel about, the idea of banning the ChatGPT or similar tools in academia?
Here you need to understand my other background, and I'm a solid kid. I'm quite familiar with banning stuff. And when I went to the university, I was one of the first who had a computer and then mobile phone. And I had these professors which were scared of internet. That's the whole thing. They we had to deliver only handly written essays, right? Because otherwise they would not accept them. That was funny and too old school. And for me, that was kind of you trying to object the reality. You're trying to, that's very controversial for me. On the other hand, I used to teach in university as well for 15 years. And I think that the basic set of skills changed totally. When in my times in university, having a nice handwriting would be part of those skills, now it's not. Now the basic part of your, I don't know, quite like very basic nominal level skills is just to be familiar with the word, right? How you should design, how you should, I don't know, change the different type of programs. Excel, it's a new basic, right? And I think that our responsibility as university teachers, but also school teachers, let's come closer to that afterwards, is to get the proper skill set to your students, to be familiar and to be able to use that properly. When I was teaching in university, the Wikipedia showed up, right? And there were just really huge weight of students literally copy pasting, right? And not checking sources. So what I've done, that was, I remember my cultural managers, year 2, I told them, now we are devoting our full year to look for the mistakes in Wikipedia on cultural studies. So we divided the terms, and they supposed to, and their final evaluation would depend on how many mistakes they found or were able to prove with trusted sources. And I believe that over that year, when it was just a funny challenge for them, they built this skill set, first of all, to doubt the source of information, fact checking, proving, and also the reasonable argumentation and the reasonable moment when to stop improving the article. And I think all of those skills are essential in today's world, and for whoever they will be in their life as professionals. I think that this is the very same thing with the AI. Let's say that I can recognize the totally GPT chart, especially free version created essay, literally in a few seconds. It just by the keywords, by the structure. It's based on my experience of using it, right? First of all. And most of students use free version. Those more talented are able to edit that. And I think this is a great skill. If they are able to edit that to the level of not being recognized as AI written, I think this is already task done. This is already challenge complete. And I think that our basic responsibility is just to make them familiar, to show them the risks of usage, to develop those skills, but the most important, to see the ethics of using those technologies. Because I think that on a lot of levels, this is what we're lacking. That's okay to use technology. That's not okay to fake it as you done that. And if you will give me an essay just built on a massive technology used for analysis and whatever, and mention this, those are additional points. This shows that you are capable as a professional. And honestly, just spending an hour to write down basic things as I don't know, most of them will start their professional life on very young positions, assistants, right? And if they will not be able to navigate among all those tools and be able, let's say, draft 20 different letter templates using an AI, they will not succeed on a professional field. They need to do that. In terms of school, in my daughter's school, she's here in London and she's 9 years old. I found that fascinating that they have coding at school. And they are learning all those things to be familiar with. And also they had once absolutely great, let's say, because some teachers are obviously too scared. And there's younger kids, they are slightly different in their approach. And they had a great training when they asked the AI to write down a story, create a story. And then they've been tasked to write the better one. And I thought that was absolutely great exercise in terms of, first of all, showcasing that their creativity goes a way further than AI, and also to build the agency of authorship. And this is the thing which I believe we mentioned. We started the conversation about it on the Philippine Pan Congress a month ago, that a lot of people keep forgetting that when you interact with ChatGPT or any AI, you're not only using, you're being used as well. You are just exchanging your authorship, the things you put together, and it became a part of the global system. So you kind of giving up your authorship to the sake of the whole big system development as well. And afterwards, it's been very delicate question, who is the author of the final thing, even if you ask the AI to improve your own text, but you already sold it. Yeah, you're selling someone, like this is what, when I went to scary creative writing students, I'm telling them, you selling your soul to the machine this moment when you're uploading your own creative text to it. And partly that's true.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm thinking about students starting out now. So put yourself in their shoes, and you obviously have access to these tools. How do you think they will react to kind of the academia that's quite tight and resistant to change? Because that's always been the struggle, right? Even with calculators back in the day, mathematicians wanted to ban it. It never worked. So, in your view, how does a student navigate today, like getting into, for example, mass communication or creative writing as a field, knowing that this tool exists?
Well, I think that any ban, any just, it will provide to more resistance. Like if you are a student and you haven't started any revolution, I don't know if you have heart for being student, right? And especially if anything is banned, and especially if anything they trying to ban is so efficient and kind of future looking. So it's like trying to ban computers in my early years.
Do you see them using it anyway, even if their teachers said no?
Always, let's say 20% who would absolutely follow the word of the teacher, and my condolences to those. And obviously the most of them will find a way, either it's cheating or just using it the other way. But I think that banning will not bring us to any point. Obviously, when it's coming about the test moments, when it's a moment of, I don't know, creative writing, then you need to be able to pray. But here, I just was thinking about those hour or few hours test when students are not allowed to use any technology, including their mobile phones. And what I can see that here is the other side of the situation. The most of the problem is for them not to be able to use any, I don't know, Google support or whatever, but not to be able to check their phones. This kind of digital anxiety, this is the most disturbing factor when they need to switch off for a moment. And I can say that when I started to monitor it in my own behavior, I set up for me and my daughter no gadget days, when we only interact with the books, board games, going to the park. And the first, even no hours or days, but months, you kind of looking at where is the phone to take a picture, and like, just come down, leave it out, right? Stay in the moment. I think that this is an important issue, which is also linked with our skill set and capacities. And we need to consider it quite seriously. This is a part of ethics, but also basic digital hygiene. I think that instead of banning GPT chat, we need to set up the classes on digital and informational hygiene. That would be a way more useful for both sides, professors and students as well, both.
Yeah, I think apart from AI, cybersecurity is another area that people kind of ignore. So the more we need to use artificial intelligence, the more we need to be conscious about privacy, security, and all that stuff. Okay. One area that I think you have a unique insight is,
Yeah.
yeah,
When
you mentioned the Ukraine conflict, right? In so can you talk a little bit about that? How is AI being used in that conflict? Well, of course, now most people's attention is on the Israel Hamas thing, right? But a few, about a year ago, it was Ukraine Russia. So where do we see AI there, or do you see AI making an impact there?
Before I will switch to that, I will share with you two funny stories about the personal life and how we're supposed to be careful or just at least conscious about usage. That was a few years, no, that was already a while ago when we moved to London. And Eva was 4, so that was 5 years ago. No GPT chat. But I was in a hurry to find the childminder for her. And how I done that? I've taken a picture on a parents' meeting before the reception. I uploaded it to Facebook and asked Facebook to recognize faces. It recognized, obviously, not all, but quite a lot. Then I signed up to those people profiles and learned their profiles and checked where they were checking in mostly. Places they visiting, I don't know, sometimes where are they shopping, are they taking their walk. Then I was looking for someone with a familiar background. So forever I was looking for someone from Ukraine or possibly Poland. So I found a Polish lady who had the very same age from the same class daughter, who would live a few buildings away. And I really liked her character, how she spent her free time. And there was a list of, there were 3 possible persons. So I contacted 3 of them. She responded. And the whole process of investigation and making a contact took me about 2 hours. So within 2 hours from the very basic picture taken on the, meeting, I learned basically enough information, right, to pick the childminder for my daughter with the cultural background, with the places, with the lifestyle. And there's all free sources, open sources, right? And so it worked for me. When I told it to her, she got a bit scared. And I think that it sounds a bit scary. On the other hand, there was even more funny story when my daughter I'm from those bad mothers. She has her own tablet since she passed 1 year old. She couldn't speak yet, but she was quite familiar how to call me or how to send me audio messages so with the different sounds, so I could get what she wants even before the proper vocabulary belt. So obviously she has a public face. In my native city, she's like most of the people of my circle can recognize her. And then she went to the playground with my dad, who is not a public person at all. And one lady just came and asking, like looking at him like that, and like, may I ask, who are you to Eva? Because I never seen you. Is it safe? And he was like, wow. That's that you can't kidnap this kid, right? It's just being a way too recognizable. So it can work basically both ways. You just need to understand those risks. You need to be familiar and you need to be conscious. Like, for example, since she passed 5 or 6 years old, I'm always asking if I can post this or that picture, if you like yourself in this or that picture, if you are okay with that. I understand that this is too young kid, but also still you don't want to affect their feelings, right? And when she says no, it's no. There's no discussion, right? And so obviously there are a lot of gray area, and you can say that it's a kid, she can take her own decisions and everything. But oh my goodness, they're taking such a lot of decisions we're not even familiar with us. So I think that the main thing and the worst thing is just to hide from it, to ban it, and you're shooting your own leg, yeah, because you are making yourself less prepared to the reality of digital world. Yeah. So this is what I thought that quite essential to understand. And if we then also you mentioned something else. You mentioned that the attention to Ukraine question is overshadowed by the situation in Gaza. You know, I was moderating the expert briefing the other days before, and with the military expert, and he really shared the insight from the comms, they monitoring international comms as well, that indeed the attention to Israeli-Gaza conflict overshadowed for 2 weeks. But then if we are talking about the dynamics, what is quite important for a communication, then the Israeli-Gaza question goes that way, when the attention to the Ukrainian question is quite sustainable. And that was a really important insight, let's say. Obviously, we're talking about Europe, right? Because for Europe, that's the background is different. I'm pretty sure that for Philippines, the dynamic would be completely different. But if we're talking about Europe, then we need to understand that this is a very pragmatic choice also, because Ukraine happened to have a quite important place in the world supply chain. And I'm pretty sure that it's not affecting Philippines, or at least not in some areas, but let's say that each 4th bottle of oil in the world comes from Ukraine. Bread, which is just all the wheat, which goes to a lot to global south as well, but also to Europe. Most of the honey in Europe comes from Ukraine. So even if we're talking about food supply, it's quite important. And if we are talking about the metals, if we are talking also about the crisis with microchips, it's linked with the situation in the eastern Ukraine as well. So I think that here we need also to understand that that narrative about there no attention to Ukraine question, it's also coming from somewhere. It's very focused. I can monitor the development narrative.
In a way, it's a media bias, correct? So depending on what the media wants us to see.
Yes, but also it depends what someone wants to deliver as well. It's like we also discussed this quite seriously, the difference between narratives of long war and never-ending eternity war, right? And then we could absolutely find out that the narrative of the indefinite war comes from Russia, who tends to promote it. And instead, for example, the expert that was Mykola Beleskov from Ukraine, from Come Home Alive. He's a senior analyst there. He emphasized that the concept of long war supposed to be used because it's suggesting that has a defined trajectory and objectives, instead of indefinite war, which is just scary and brings you emotions, right? And this is how communication technologies works. So there were quite a bit of insights, and this is also an important thing in terms of the fact-checking. I really like the format because there was expert briefing. An expert briefing means that you are, and my role as a moderator was to narrow it toward his expertise area, to his remit. Otherwise, we are under the risk to switch to the opinion exchange. An opinion exchange, as we know, it's nice for creative sphere, but definitely not for the military and not for the comms analytics as well. So, and as we are switching now to the topic of Ukraine, where I think that there are plenty of things we would be interesting to discuss, because first of all, artificial intelligence is widely used on the battlefield. Simply put, in the war of Ukraine, artificial intelligence and autonomous technologies are being used with the extent and nature of their deployment not entirely clear yet, because obviously a lot of those things are used for intelligence, but a lot used quite openly. Ukraine has engaged its tech community to support the world, especially drone technology. Drone technology is developing quite significantly. Recently, they invented that technology which can not destroy the opponent drones, but like redesign the software. So you basically reprogramming them, and now they work for you. Right? What can be the better way, right, of that usage? And however, the more advanced AI capacities, like analyzing various data to improve decision making, like we mentioned earlier in the project management, have mostly been developed by the US and allied forces outside of the Ukraine, but I think that they would never dream to have such a test drive, right? Just checking how it works in very real life conditions. But also, we need to mention here private sector. Private sector companies provided this capabilities to Ukraine also significantly. There's such a lot of startups which work with, or just initiative groups, which work with war technology and showcases how those technology changing the battlefield in real time. And it emphasized how much global trend of militaries investing in artificial intelligence was, right? Because we never thought about that before when it came to the very real situation. All that progress, there's a potential advantages such as reducing risks, for example, obviously for deployed forces, and speeding up some processes. There was some discussion on ethical concerns and risks, such as responsibility, for example, for lethal force and unexpected behavior of artificial intelligence system, because here we all know that all those ethical puzzles, right, when you need to take a choice, right, who's gonna survive. But besides that progress, here is a growing body of research studying the implications. And I think that we are in the moment when all those technologies are just blossoming and spreading significantly in a very level. And starting from such a basics as a face recognition, as we could see from my story, that even 5 years ago, you were absolutely able to recognize the person only using Facebook, nothing more advanced than that. But also it's data protection, which is extremely important. Also, sometimes those security protections are involving, let's say, the basic scanner of people being nervous or not normal. They're like not normal behavior, that something wrong is going on, and it can raise the issue, right? So they're very different levels, and I'm really glad that Ukraine is investing a lot into that development, and also with the support of partners. It's not only the US, but NATO partners also. They were investing a lot. I just read this big CNA report by Margarita. She's one of the experts on the area, Margarita Konaev. She's one of the experts on the artificial intelligence use in Russia-Ukraine war. And it's built on a few big parts. Firstly, reviews existing arrangements about the AI potential effects on strategic stability and conflict dynamics in general ways. But then it provides an overview of the use of the war in Ukraine, and next considers how artificial intelligence use in the war may impact the risk of escalation and conflict spreading. And lastly, assesses how artificial intelligence may affect strategic stability between the United States and Russia beyond the current conflict and war. And then they're trying to amplify how all those mechanisms work in a different conflict and war areas as well. So I think that's massive knowledge. And sometimes I regret that I'm not GPT chat. You can't process such a lot of information in a very short terms. And I think that this investment pays off in a lot of ways. I mean, that obviously there are a lot of, especially in terms of intelligence, right, that classified task and missions remains undisclosed. We will learn about this way later on, but in terms of documentation of war as well, we have a lot of, in terms of hacking, and this is the huge tool, especially also in comms, if we're talking about communication, right? There are regular cases when some initiative groups of Ukrainian or other, any hackers around the world just, crashing into Russian TV and showcasing any videos from the battlefield or from the, occupied territories or from Crimea, how the reality looks, and just trying to debunk the propaganda outcomes. But you know what is surprising? That people which are deeply brainwashed that you can trust nobody, they're not able to take those things as evidence. Oh, that's funny and interesting thing that we thought that probably this deep fake technology will play a way bigger role. But recently, a couple of weeks ago, Russians released the deep fake video on Zaluzhny, who stated about, the, let's say, almost military coup against Zelensky. And they released 2 videos in one day and didn't work. Actually, like these concerns about them using deep fake videos for misinformation have not really materialized significantly in the war. So this is a totally unexpected outcome, because I personally expected it to have more influence, probably. But in the world full of fakes, you may be already not really so impressed with such a little place. We are faking the Santa clothes for our kids through the proper apps already for ages. So probably fake Zelensky or fake Zaluzhny doesn't impress anymore.
I just realized we're almost at the hour. Like, it goes by very quickly. So okay, given everything you've shared on the war, strategic comms, academia, I guess being a writer, where do you see these things evolving? At least in the next 12 months, because these things move very fast, right? There's been a lot of movement. So we're done with year 1 of Chat GPT and all these tools. What do you expect in the next year or so? And do you also subscribe to kind of this notion of AGI, artificial general intelligence, suddenly popping up? Is that something you feel intuitively will happen, or is just more hype? So anyway, where's your instinct on this?
I think that, first of all, I obviously can't really project the general tendency of development, but I think that it has impressive learning capacity, especially with the let's say the visuals, right? I'm not really good in that. I have a proper people who are able to put together the proper deck, let's say, to create some visuals, because when I'm doing it myself, I'm the one getting people with the 7 fingers and all those mistakes, right? And it shows very clearly that you need to have some skills. If I am quite good with texts and I can put together the proper tech deck with visuals, I'm complete lumber then. And I think that it just responds to a lot of it brings us to the ethical dilemmas and questions, let's say in GDPR regulations, but also it releases us from some. Like, let's say, for example, we can't use the children pictures, but we can create pictures with children. And now we are back in the legal area, right? Even if it's not clear enough in terms of created by artificial intelligence. And we have a lot of questions on authorship rights, and writers community are discussing it deeply. And I think that the worst position is just let's ban it and let's forget that it exists. Not going to happen for sure. And we need to adjust to the situation, the way how the translation words are coming through, the huge changes, right? You remember that the Google Translated at the very beginning would give you some idea, but since DeepL, for example, exists, and basically for each PAN Congress, and we are obliged to provide all the documentation in 3 core languages. It's English, French, and Spanish, historically based. And we would spend, just to translate delegates back, just a like it cost me, well, which is so it just significant changes. It's enormous changes, but those are documents. This is documentation, and DeepL is totally able to translate that. If we are talking about fiction, doesn't work that way. And I think that this is where the whole thing moving towards too. That when we are talking about quite simple tasks, you can teach the artificial, and it learns itself quite good in terms of linguistic capacity and everything. But if we are talking about the core of creativity, then I can't really see, because this is why I brought up the example of translation. It's very good in terms of legal documents, in terms of quite technical text. You barely need to edit that. But if we are talking about translating the creative text, even if it's had a quality leap over the last few years, it doesn't work this way. It doesn't work so good. And when you try, I was editing a couple of artificial translation based. My goodness, it's easier just to start from the scratch and translate yourself. When you're looking for a metaphor, when you're translating, it's a creative act. When you're translating fiction, right? You need to speak a lot. You need to refer to the cultural code of the language you are translating into. And this is a way, and this is where I'm coming back to my academic background and aesthetic perception. You can put together a lot of factors, and as a member of jury, for example, of a lot of literary contests or the other, just we're creating the system of evaluation. We're creating the very clear criteria, how we evaluate, what is what. And then at the end of the day, you're like, do I feel it? Does it touch me? This is something you can't put into the tech deck. This is something, what is this core of creativity, which is impossible, I can tell for now, but I'm not sure, maybe for never, to put into some algorithms. And I think that in terms of those model development, this definitely have a huge future. And we, as intellectuals, as university professors, as any experts, we need, and this is our responsibility to make people aware this is not going to disappear, right? But in terms of the creativity and creative work, it can be a tool, but it's still something totally different. We should talk about our creative contribution to artificial intelligence sphere. We should talk about, like, I don't know, it's okay to Google for synonyms when you're looking for them, right? But no one will make the work of the choice and choosing the proper one about what you want to tell. And I remember my personal problem as a long-term academic and editor, and I have my own quite developed sophisticated system how to work with the text. And when I needed to write something in a fiction, and I would talk to my therapist, and she said, you know what, you're asking yourself like how objective, how needed this information is. This is totally wrong, because when you are writing a fiction, this is what you personally want to tell. This is the value of your subjective vision. This is the value of you being not related narrator, right? This is like the beauty of being wrong. And this is what artificial intelligence can give you. No.
Yeah, well said. Okay. Well, as I said, we're probably out of we don't have time to tackle everything, but we have to save some for the next chat. First I have to thank Olha for agreeing to talk. Hopefully we can have you again on another conversation. And yeah, and thank you for sharing your insights.
Yeah, that's my pleasure. Thank you.